There's a big difference between insight and eyesight. Of course, we all know that. When we see with our eyes outwardly and when we see with our mind inwardly about the meaning of life. If you had to choose one or the other, it would be difficult to see and appreciate things visually or to grasp the deeper meaning of things inwardly. I was thinking of Helen Keller, who became physically blind at a very early age. One of her well-known quotes was this. She said, "More difficult than being blind would be to have my sight, but without vision." Though not able to see the physical shapes of the world around her, Helen thought well beyond the surface of things, and she saw more deeply their meaning. She rightly described what she called the outer daylit world. She said it was stumbling and groping in social blindness. She was very aware of that. A kind of blindness more serious, in her view, than not being able to see with one's eyes. She remarked about social blindness in referring to the painful difficulties that people and groups of people have in getting along with each other and working through their differences in a positive way, being in it together. The theme of that sort of idea was very much part of our morning Bible study this morning. The Advent study on Down to Earth is the name of the book. Helen was often heard to say that more than a peace that passeth understanding, she would prefer understanding that leads to a deep peace. I hear in that an echo of when Jesus, approaching Jerusalem, wept over the city. He said, "If you only knew today what is needed for peace, but even now you cannot see it." So disheartened he was that people could be so socially blind, as Helen Keller would put it. Helen believed that the best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen physically or even touched. They may be felt first in the heart. Unquote. In contrast to Helen Keller, along comes Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus, a figure from biblical times, a blind beggar who wants his sight restored. A blind beggar back then was treated as one of the ones on the lowest rung of the social ladder, a social nobody, whose rejection by society doubtlessly multiplied the pain of his personal isolation many times. Few of us have any idea what it's like to have great personal needs and yet to be shunned by the society where we live. At any rate, Bartimaeus set his heart upon being healed of his blindness, having his eyesight restored. He just wanted to see again. When Jesus and a multitude of his followers were passing by on their way out of the town of Jericho. Incidentally, this was Jesus' last trip through Jericho on his final journey to Jerusalem before his arrest and his crucifixion. There had to be many deep concerns upon his mind, which makes Jesus' sudden shift of attention all the more impressive that he hears the pleading voice of Bartimaeus in the midst of a crowd of people. Jesus stops, and he turns his attention from the many to the one, something we aren't always good at doing ourselves. We get lost in the crowd of people. We sometimes get lost in the crowd of our own emotions and miss what's going on right next to us. Jesus stopping and paying direct attention to the voice of one crying in the crowd was so impressive, and that many of the crowd were telling Bartimaeus, "Keep quiet." But Jesus stops and he gives us full attention. In just 5 brief verses of the Bible, there are some worthwhile things to learn from Bartimaeus. First, Bartimaeus didn't let anyone in the disparaging crowd discourage him from shouting out, calling out to Jesus for help. Question is, do you ever hide or hold back the expression of your faith when you're in a crowd of people who might not understand your faith or agree with you? Do you ever let the social pressure of others keep you quiet about the very faith that inspires your heart and mind and keeps you going? Well, Bartimaeus did not. Second, Bartimaeus knew clearly what he wanted to ask of Jesus. When Jesus asked, "What do you want me to do for you?" Bartimaeus was quick to reply clearly and honestly, "Master, let me receive my sight." In this, I hear Bartimaeus saying something close to, "I need you, I can't do this by myself, but I know you can." Question, do you have any things like that on your mind? Do you have any need of anything at all from a relationship with Jesus? Something you've come to realize you can't do, relying on just yourself to do it right. Can you name it? Or perhaps something negative in your life that you've carried for long enough, perhaps too long, as it constantly gets in your way and in the way of others. Something that now needs to be healed. Can you name it? Do you need to be healed of any sort of blindness at all, where something you're not seeing causes relationships to fall short of what they could be or could become? Are you angry with anyone? And you can't figure out what to do about it except to stay angry and prolong the pain, especially when you know that that is not the answer to anything. If Jesus were to ask you what he needed, what he asked of Bartimaeus, "What do you need from me?" what would it be? Or are you going along every day as though there were nothing to talk to Jesus about? So first, Bartimaeus didn't let anyone in the crowd discourage him from shouting out to Jesus as he passed by. And second, he had a need he couldn't manage by himself and knew that he wanted to ask Jesus about that. Then third, Bartimaeus had faith in Jesus' ability to heal him. He had come to the right place and to the right person. And the question is, where's your faith right now? At the beginning of this Advent season. Who do you trust with it? Do you believe that Jesus is the right person to come to in prayer? The dustpan of prayer and a broom. And the fellowship to come to in prayer and in fellowship in order to see better what life and relationships are all about in your life. To have blindness replaced with wonderful insight that has the power to heal. Well, Bartimaeus did. And then a fourth thing about Bartimaeus. After he came to Jesus, after he asked for what he needed and he trusted that Jesus could do it, Bartimaeus didn't just say thank you and go home, but rather he joined the throng and he followed. The throng that was following Jesus. He became a disciple. Bartimaeus came to Jesus, asked for what he needed, trusted, and then he followed. No one follows Jesus without coming to see a whole lot more than what one discovers in the initial meeting. Imagine Helen Keller, Bartimaeus, and Jesus all together in one place. What a group. Helen might say, Bartimaeus, the best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt, experienced in your heart. And then Bartimaeus might say, Helen, I will be your eyes to see some things you can't see, and describe the colors of a sunset and a rainbow, or the look of gratitude on the face of one who loves you dearly, or the humble gestures of one seeking forgiveness for something he did or she did that injured you. Or the sincerity seen in the eyes of one who decides to forgive you for something. I'll be your eyes that way. And then Jesus would say to them both, and to us as well, if you want to see all that God has prepared for you, all that God hopes for you and prays for you and with you, and all that God wills to have happen in this life and in this world and in the life yet to be, then follow me. And you will see. That's the miracle. And you will see.